NFL Daily, where we're fans of West Ham, but we're going to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium soon.
Speak for yourself.
Welcome to NFL Daily, presented by DoorDash. Yeah, I don't know why I'm a West Ham fan. Actually, I do know why. Nat Coombs, my friend over there who works for the BBC, who's got to be on NFL Daily because I'm going next week.
You're with me.
He gave me a jersey. So, when I was saying I needed a team, and I went with the Hammers.
Well, that's how come I'm an Arsenal fan, because years ago I went over there and one of the teams, I think the Falcons, were practicing at Arsenal. They were very nice to me and gave me some gear, so I'm all about the Gunners now.
I should have mentioned we're here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio with Steve Wyche and Patrick Claybon, but you know that already. It's the preview show crew. It's the preview show crew. And yes, I don't know if I've mentioned it officially on this show, but I am heading over. You're covering the game for NFL Network and CBS,
yes,
right?
I'll be on the sidelines.
That's pretty exciting.
Stacey Dale's me for the Bears-Jags.
Yes, and so I will be there for Bears-Jags as well. Keep listening to this podcast, because I think we might try to do a little bit of a meetup when I tape my preview show just in 1 week.
Okay.
We're going to be taping it at the Bears bar if everything goes according to plan. The Bears have an official team bar, and yeah, we might let the listeners know, but we got to make sure it's locked down. For now, we're focused on Vikings, Jets, and all the other, week 5 games.
Yes, and it's so much fun to look forward to. We're going from smallest to the biggest spread this week, but we start where everything will start on Sunday. It is the red hot Sam Darnold led.
There it is.
Minnesota Vikings, a 2.5-point favorite against Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, who scored 9 points. It was a missed Greg the Leg field goal from 50 to give the Denver Broncos the win at MetLife. Concerns and consternation abound in New Jersey, Greg?
Absolutely. With this matchup coming up, and you're coming off a game where the Broncos really tested your protection. It's not just the cadence that was a problem. It was, where are these rushers coming from on that Denver Broncos defense? They lead the league in blitz rate. Well, you know who's number 2 and sends even maybe more problems that'll mess with your mind? It is the Minnesota Vikings. Olufashinu got his first start at right tackle, really struggled. Their interior line for the Jets, which had been playing well, but had a step up in competition last week and suddenly wasn't playing well. Their young player, Joe Tippmann, in the middle too. Now you got to deal with this Minnesota crew and get this offense going.
Yeah, you got Jonathan Grenard, Alex Van Ginkel, these guys coming off the edges. What's interesting to me too, when this is a huge game for the Jets, it may not seem so, but this really kicks off a significant stretch, because after this they play the Bills, they play the Steelers, then the Patriots and Texans. Right? If they don't get a win right here, it could get a little greasy, Patrick, for the Jets. I like the Vikings in this game, not only with the points, not only because of like what you said defensively, they're just finding their groove. I mean, I just think offensively with your favorite player, Sam Darnold, Greg, your favorite quarterback on Quarterback Island, they've got it working. I mean, Aaron Jones gives them options in the backfield. He's throwing the ball downfield. And they've got Justin Jefferson, right? They've got other players here. Okay, Sauce Gardner and Justin Jefferson. JJ's not going to care. He doesn't care. So I really do like this game. And like I was saying, if the Jets don't win this, it's about to get real extra greasy coming back to New Jersey.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson actually had one of the sauciest quotes of the season. It was referencing a Jet, because people were asking, the 49ers are coming in and they were tough for Garrett Wilson. And he said, with all due respect, I'm not Garrett Wilson.
With all due respect.
And so, I guess whenever somebody says all due respect, it's like, all right, well, you're about to tell me how much respect is actually due. Aaron Rodgers, the 3rd highest rate in the NFL in quick passes, under 2.5 seconds. Yeah. He's going to need to do that. It didn't necessarily help against the Denver Broncos, as you mentioned, Greg. And that leads me, because we have this discussion every week. I know it's early in the show. We have our concerns about the Jets.
Oh, is he got to do it?
We believe in the Minnesota Vikings.
Are we doing it?
Should we make this our survivor pick for the
It's crazy. I know Jets have been on fraud watch.
They have been.
For you. And I suddenly was convinced Rodgers is playing well. I actually stand by the point Rodgers playing well. I don't think he was the issue last week. But when their defense and when their offense had to play like a much tougher opposition, and then the step up in competition for their defense this week, because if you think about who the Jets defense has played lately. Broncos,
Correct.
Patriots, Titans. Those are like the 3 worst offenses in the league just about, and now you have to make this step up. Aaron Jones against this run defense. Aaron Jones, like they are a run-first offense, I would say, and if you look at what they're doing on early downs, and he's been a top 5 running back, and you kind of look how the Jets' run game on the defense side got washed out last week. A lot of Will McDonald just flying off the edge, and they're running right at him, even with Javonte Williams, who had been struggling. That I would pick the Vikings as a survivor pick.
Let's go. I'm in.
Whoa.
Let's
do it.
Wow.
You got me. You got me. You know, here's a player for the Vikings.
Bold.
Here's a player for the Vikings, too, that I think we don't talk about. The Gilly Lock.
Okay.
Stephon Gilmore. I mean, this guy he's playing well. He's a perfect fit in this defense. I just think Aaron Rodgers is, he's going to continue playing well, but there's just not enough there. They don't score.
Can we get Garrett Wilson going there? There are some stats that have him in the top 10 in terms of like separation. Like he's still Garrett Wilson. What am I missing? I took him, I think like 17th overall in my fantasy draft. That's definitely not going well. Neither is my Devontae Adams pick right now. But
you hope he gets moved soon.
Alan Lazard's leading this team in catches, and Garrett Wilson, who is explosive, is under 10 yards per catch. And can I read the Garrett Wilson quotes? I'm actually kind of surprised these didn't get more attention. Instead, we're on Cadence Gate all week. And Garrett Wilson, their best receiver, literally said, I don't think we do a lot of different stuff, to be honest. I watch football on Sundays, and I see a lot of teams mix it up and stuff like that. I don't think we do that. ... I don't think we're trying to do a lot of different things. I'm actually surprised that it didn't get more pop. That was, by the way, on the Bart and Han podcast. I think Bart Scott.
Well, it depends on where your particular place of employment is. If it's in Florham Park, apparently you can have a particular coach's name in the idea in your mouth. But if you're outside of the facility, that coach's name must be kept out of your mouth.
Kept out of your mouth. Well, so that's what it is. So
fun game, though.
My name's Nathaniel Hackett. Thanks. It's nice to see you out here.
that was beautiful.
Yeah. And when they put this on the NFL Network schedule, this looked like probably the best of the 3, but you weren't sure about the Vikings. Now we got the best team in the NFL so far.
Yeah, and that's who we're gonna see. Wake up, rise, shine, and watch some football. And before the game, you can catch game day kickoff starting Sunday at 7 a.m. Eastern, and you can see Aaron Rodgers sit down with Kyle Brandt.
That'd be good.
It's not a FaceTime interview. They are literally face to face. And you can see that right before the game kicks off. Looking forward to that game. Of course, always looking forward to NFL Network games. Let's go to the Buffalo Bills at the Houston Texans. The Bills favored by 1 after their first loss of the season. What a stretch for them. They have to go to Baltimore and now at Houston, where the over-under is 47.5, Steve. Maybe some deficiencies for the Bills that we weren't previously exposed to got highlighted on Sunday Night Live.
Yeah, this is one now. We look at this, like these are 2 teams that we really like, and you look at their victories, and they really haven't come against what you would consider like strength of schedule type of opponents. And then both times they played tough teams, both teams got dragged. So this is an intriguing game. When you look at what the Bills have done well, right? Some of the matchups with the tight ends and things like this is a secondary that can handle that, right? They've got the safeties with Jalen Petrie. They've got the corners that can kind of take out what the Bills like to do in the passing game, and they've got the speed at inside linebacker that can match up with James Cook in the passing game. I like the Texans and the points here.
Look at you.
Right,
I like the picks right off the top.
I like the Texans and the points just because they're at home. Now they're playing a bunch of one possession type of games, which is what the NFL we've seen earlier in the season, but they seem to be gaining a little bit more traction in their identity. I know defensively they haven't hit it there yet. And Laramie Tunsil, I mean, he's just Mr. Penalty Man.
Multiple penalties every game this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where he's going to have to tighten that up because those guys off the edge for the Bills will get after him.
I really like your point on how they defend the middle of the field. That's a great shot there because that's where the Bills want to win. And yet I trust the Bills a little bit more. If I had to pick it, I'd take the Bills, but this is a toss-up to me. And I do have to pick it because we do a pick show, game debut. So I have to decide. Check that out on NFL Network. But they've been a different defense. They've been effective. They've been better on defense overall this year, but they've been different. They've been blitzing a lot.
Yes.
And they're actually not getting a lot of one-on-one like pass rush wins from Hunter and Will Anderson, which is a little surprising. I'm not saying they're not good players, but if you just add up their quarterback hits and sacks so far, it's quite low. I think it's like a combined 8 or 9 total between the two of them, sacks, QB hits. So that's surprising to me, and it's a really good Bills offensive line.
Yes.
So that's a really good matchup. The Bills are leading the NFL in pass rush or pass block win rate. So it's a really good offensive line. And you see Teron Johnson return to practice on
He's
Wednesday.
a hell of a
you
player.
see Terrell Bernard returns, and you're like, oh, okay, this defense is going to be back. But then you look who's missing from practice. I don't know how serious it's going to be, but it's Deion Dawkins, their left tackle.
Yeah.
So that's a huge one. And then Khalil Shakir, which I would think he's going to play in this game because he finished the last one, but he's out of practice and he's been big. And one thing, and I'll throw this to you, Patrick, is we hadn't talked about on this show is that Von Miller is suspended
Yes.
for violating the league's conduct policy related to a domestic assault allegation that was last December, and he had been, a big part of their defensive line. So he is out for the next 4 games.
And a big part of that stretch where the Bills were dominating everybody. And now that the things are kind of in the light, you see deficiencies. You see Derrick Henry, which Derrick Henry hit 21.6, I believe, miles an hour on that run.
That's crazy.
But there was no threat for him to be caught in that secondary. I know that guys are missing.
I mean, look at this. We're watching DeMar Hamlin can run, and he's not caning a step on Derrick.
I mean, that's a snowball going downhill. That's like just
Gee.
you're not stopping that.
Yeah, and then the concerns up front for Buffalo, where the Ravens, albeit they're a good team, and they had those changes up front on the offensive line that they had to start the season with, but they were moving the Bills really, really easily in the run game, and now we got a Texans team that could get Joe Mixon back. It's tough. To view this, and I'm also because Nico Collins leading the entire league.
He's the dude
in receiving right.
He is a real dude.
Who's in the Buffalo Bills secondary where you can say, all right, I feel confident that Nico Collins.
I mean, I wouldn't say that maybe about any cornerback in the league.
No.
They've like a couple, but Christian Benford to me is playing at a high level.
He's good.
He's a top 10 to 15 cornerback. I'd say right now.
And Taron Johnson's one of the best slot corners in there now. Size-wise, he's a much smaller slot corner, but he is a real good. I mean, he's one of the top 2 or 3 slot corners. So if he comes back, that'd be an
maybe they were saving
matchup.
him for Stephon Diggs. This is the revenge game. I mean, I don't know if it's a real revenge game here, but yeah,
we can make one for everybody. I mean,
I think in this case though, there was some sort of disconnect between Diggs and Josh Allen.
yes,
So
there was.
So I don't know if it's a revenge game, but it's spicy. I mean, we also got this deep into the conversation about this game without even mentioning, like, we got 2 of the best 4 or 5 quarterbacks here.
Oh,
so
can't wait for
a lot
that.
of it comes down to, like, how much support do these 2 quarterbacks get? Because I'm feeling confident that they're both gonna play well.
Yes.
It's a great Bills run offense with James Cook and with Josh Allen against a very good run defense. So if the Bills can run the ball, I feel pretty good about the Bills, and I think Stroud's playing very well. Even when he's pressured, he looks good.
My concern with the Buffalo Bills offense was when the run game wasn't working on Sunday night, it was really just balls down the sideline, back shoulders to Keon Coleman, and that's it.
The weird thing was the run game kind of was working. They just didn't run the ball that much. But yes, they went away from it.
Yeah, the game script kind of got away from him, and YOLO Josh came back for a brief little bit, but I mean they're down 21-3. Saw Josh 2 yards out of bounds, throwing a ball 50 yards down the field. It's fun stuff, but
They can't be on.
sustainable.
They can't be on the run game. The Texans got the corners to handle their outside targets, which we know really aren't that great.
This is the location of what I think was probably the nadir of the YOLO Josh era, which was the playoff game against the Texans. That was actually the moment where everyone, and I admit I couldn't have been more wrong about Josh Allen, spiked the football prematurely. It was just like, see, it's never going to happen, Josh Allen, guys. Like, look at this guy. And now look at him, one of the best players in the NFL for years.
Was that the weird, 10 yards down the field behind the back?
Yeah, there was all sorts of things in that game. It was rough.
Yeah, we love it. Keep trying to make plays. Always must-see TV. But again, one of the best, at least however many people you want to have in the top 5. Josh Allen is going to be in there. Well, you're going to have 5 in the top 5 regardless. So we talked about great matchups. What about 2 teams in the AFC East that we are thrilled to watch right about now? It is the Miami Dolphins at the New England Patriots, who are a 1-point favorite with a huge total number of 36 and a half points. As it was the start to the Tyler Huntley era, Steve, was exciting, but then they really, Tyreek fumbled. It just all went downhill. The Tennessee Titans.
It was bad. I mean, Snoop Huntley had been there for like 8 days. They just didn't have much of a playbook. I actually think Miami's going to play a lot better in this game, and I like. And this was you talk about quotes that got overlooked. I think Mike McDaniels, after that game, he basically, in a very diplomatic way, said guys on his team were making business decisions. They weren't helping out Snoop Huntley.
Well,
right?
I know one that must have been on his mind was Jalen Waddle. Just kind of stopped running on a play over the middle of the field where if you rewatched it, it was like, I don't even think he was going to get hit. It was kind of, it was weird. He had a big drop. Hill had a drop and a fumble. They didn't charge him with the fumble, but that was pretty bad effort on the fumble and just a bad play. You're right. They need their best players to play better.
And I think he saw the Titans players kind of step up to help the backup quarterback. When Mason Rudolph had to come in and play, all right, those guys stepped up and rallied. How come nobody is doing it for their backup quarterback? So he seemed to put guys on notice. I think you're going to see the Dolphins offense work a little bit, well, I think a lot better than what it's been. If they can get something going in that run game, that Patriots defense we thought that was going to be really good early on is showing some cracks. Now they got boat raced by the Niners last week, but they're not playing as well. It's an opportunity. So we'll see.
I mean, forget cracks. This thing is busted open. Yeah. We're sweeping it under the table. It's over.
It's over?
I mean, first of all, they don't have their best player, Christian Barmore, unfortunately. When we were talking about their defense before the season, too, we thought Matthew Judon would be involved in that. Christian Gonzalez is playing well, but then they also lost their guy who had the headset, that they're throwing the calls into, Juwan Bentley, so that hurts communication. This week, Kyle Duggar is not going to play, that's another guy with a big contract. And Jabril Peppers, who's been one of their best players, is out of practice and is very questionable. So I think this was a team that was supposed to be more than the sum of their parts on defense, but when you take away all the best parts and you take away Bill Belichick, I think that hurts.
Yeah, it's a struggle, and it's a tough one to pick because the Patriots have their issues. The Dolphins got worse this week. Jalen Phillips is going to be out for the remainder of the year. After coming back on a relatively short timeline from Achilles. Yeah, he's going to have reconstructive knee surgery, so he's out.
Really sad
for the rest of the season. Hopefully, he's able to bounce back. But in watching New England, they hung close in Santa Clara. Was that the Patriots playing significantly better? Was that a down game? With all the stars, we're back for San Francisco. It's tough to really get a read on this Patriots team.
Oh, I don't think so. I think these are the two of the three worst teams in the NFL. I think they're easy to read. They can't protect. Jacoby last game had one of his worst games as a pro.
Is this a swing game?
Yes. If he has another bad game, it'll be his last game. Because last week he was a bigger part of the problem than he had been in the past. And I don't think Drake May is going to save them. But you saw their wide receivers were pouting. This is a big story in New England, not nationally because no one cares. But Jalen Polk and Pop Douglas were kind of pouting and having bad language and getting upset a little bit. Seemed like they weren't. They've only attempted 19 throws over 10 yards.
That's crazy.
Year.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And I get it. They're on their fourth left tackle. They just lost. I'm just keep coming up with injuries. They lost their team captain, David Andrews,
that's
probably for the rest of the season today too. And so that's their best offensive lineman. So it's two teams it's the bad vibes bowl. It's really tough.
I wonder if Andrews, if this might be it for him. He's played a long time.
He's getting up there in years.
Hope not.
Certainly was an important player for them. Tyreek Hill, meanwhile, tweets out, woke up to some trade news this morning. When a guy tweets something like that out, does he know what he's doing? He's got to know what he's doing.
Yeah.
What does he mean?
He's just
Devontae Adams,
They asked him about where he wanted to be. They asked him about Kansas City and Miami, the reporters there, and he said, I want to be here. I want to be here in Miami. So that's an interesting thought. It's not the craziest idea if he got traded. He's barking there behind McDaniel. You mentioned a show me something game. This is getting trouble times for not so much McDaniel, but the above him, Chris Greer, I think, long term. It's early in the season, but this is I think the two worst teams in the league. I don't think that's exaggeration, right?
Isn't it interesting though? People say, Tua's a system quarterback, this and that. If Tua comes back, are we sitting there saying this stuff about them? If he's able to play?
we at least feel like there's some sort of functional
Correct.
hope for
Correct.
Although, if it's funny, if this team was like the Eagles, a team that gets a little more attention, it'd be a little more on the radar. Here are some of their scores in their last 7 games. I know we're going long on this game, though, but I find this Dolphins team fascinating. 56-19. This is where the McDaniel era started to go wrong against the Ravens. 26-7. That was the playoff loss to the Chiefs. Not pretty. They also had a game where they only scored 14 points with the AFC East up for grabs against the Bills. And then this year, 31-10. Tua played more than half that game. 24-3, 31-12. Those are crazy scores.
Yeah, it's tough. Someone will win this game. It's time for hot matchups presented by Wingstop, as the Baltimore Ravens are a 2.5-point favorite at the Cincinnati Bengals, who did get their first win of the season, going up on the road against the Carolina Panthers last week. The over-under at 50.5. Kevin Harlan and Trent Green on the call. It should be a fun game, Greg.
Yes.
We've wanted to see a healthy Joe Burrow go up against this Ravens team. Now we finally get that opportunity.
I think it'll be a fun game, especially for you, Patrick, who, leans a little Ravens. Sometimes analysis, like our jobs are too easy. Like what reason do we have to think that the Bengals defense as a whole, and especially on the ground, is going to stop this mass unit of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry? Because I don't have any. This Ravens running attack is looking more cohesive in terms of their offensive line. We know the 2 runners are just electric, and I have no faith in this Bengals defense. If we were looking for a spicy, survivor pick here, I might actually like the Ravens even better than the Vikings. I'm fine with the Vikings. We'll stick with that. But the Ravens, I feel good about the Ravens.
It's weird because, you think about Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator for the Bengals, and man, this guy is so good and he's such a great in-game adjuster. They have not figured it out. But my thing more so is with the Ravens, because they seem to have found their identity a little bit. And that's a dangerous thing. Like, they were figuring out, remember the first game against the Chiefs, Ronnie Stanley kept the illegal alignment type of thing. Like, that got in their heads, right? Their offensive line wasn't working first couple of games. It was mashing last week against the Bills. They were very, very impressive. They set their identity. They are not going to get away from that against the Cincinnati Bengals. And if they do, the Bengals secondary is a little wobbly.
They benched Cam Taylor-Britt
which
last
is crazy because he has been a hell of a player. He's not playing well. We know the safeties have not been good since they got rid of Jesse Bates a couple years ago. I just think this is one we're going to see Mark Andrews finally really get involved in a wheelhouse. Isaiah Likely. I think we're going to see some things happening in that game as well, that part of things.
And we're also going to learn whether or not it's a sustainable thing, because Roger Rosengarten had his first start last week. Played incredibly well for his first NFL start. Derrick Henry goes for 87 yards on the very first carry. Andrew Voorhees was out, so they had to move Patrick McCarry inside. And that shuffling was like the greatest thing to ever happen, right? Because they were having problems on the interior of the offensive line, and everything seemed to work out in their favor. My concern is on the outside with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and a healthy and accurate Joe Burrow. This team is not too far removed from getting Devontae'd and as well as Gardner Minshew.
But can the Bengals keep up in a shootout? I think that's going to be the question for them all season. And I think against a lot of teams, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Against this Ravens team, which surprisingly to me, DVOA, which is just total efficiency, has them as the number 1 passing attack and the number 1 rushing attack, which is pretty wild because they've been that efficient when they have been throwing the ball. So I trust the Ravens defense just so much more that, you can get into a shootout, but your defense just really is going to make life hard. It's going to be good for T. Higgins and Chase's fantasy numbers and Burrow's fantasy numbers all year long. I did want to mention they had Chris Jenkins come in last week, the rookie, and he apparently played pretty well. And BJ Hill is maybe getting healthy, so that would help their Bengals defense. But I noticed this Bengals offense, for what it's worth, has faced the second easiest collection of defenses so far in the entire NFL. So they've been racking up some big numbers. This is a tougher test for them.
Yes, it is.
It's significantly tougher. I see the Ravens getting better. The Bengals getting better as well. It's tough to let go of the past in those matchups, because a lot of those guys Lou had success with are still right
That's
there.
true. A couple years ago, they gave the Ravens everything they could handle every time they could. Although last year
game.
it was a
It's gonna be
different
tough
Ravens
game.
team, Bengals team, but they did sweep the Bengals last year. This is a Kevin Harlan, Trent Green game. Surprise. This is an early 10 a.m. start. Kevin Harlan, Trent Green. Love hearing Kevin Harlan on a big game. Kind of love to talk about a little Sunday night football after the break. We'll be back in a second on NFL Daily. Back on NFL Daily, Patrick's with me on the Sunday night recap shows, and the way we tape it, we finish taping, and then I race over to our film room here at NFL Network, where Chris Rose usually is, and maybe MJD, and you get to watch the Sunday night football game. Like I want to be racing through this recap because I want to get to Cowboys Steelers. I'm into this matchup.
Yeah, it's Sunday night football in Pittsburgh, where the Steelers are a 2.5-point favorite against the Dallas Cowboys. It's Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth on the call. We'll be waiting all day for Sunday night. And Steve, this is a offense that doesn't want to run the ball, can't run the ball if they did want to, against the number one rushing efficiency defense in all of football.
Yes, and we know how good that Pittsburgh defense is, and the Cowboys. I'm surprised this number is only 2.5. We were talking before the show, like, okay, this is what it is, but then you think about this is Dallas's strength really plays into Pittsburgh's strength. Pittsburgh's got more strengths in this game against Dallas. Like you said, the Cowboys aren't going to be able to run the football against the Steelers. That's not going to happen. So now Dak's going to be one-dimensional. CeeDee Lamb's going to get all the attention. We know the Archer is out, right? The speedster, Brandon Cooks is out. Is not playing in this game. All right, what's Dallas's left hand offensive?
Shout out to Wyche's brain for coming up with the Archer.
The Archer,
but
the nickname, but not the actual name.
I don't know if everyone knows him as the Archer, but that is a good one.
And also, there was an error where he got to fire the arrow, but then he got a letter, right?
Fine.
And so he just was able to pull the arrow back, but not actually let go of it.
The friend of the show, Danny Heifetz, made a great point that the Buccaneers literally shoot cannons, and the Patriots shoot muskets out of guns when they score a touchdown. So. I don't know. It's a little hypocritical there.
Chargers shoot cannons too. But I mean, I'm just like, so what is Dallas's offensive left hand? Right? What are they going to go to? Because they're going to lock up CeeDee Lamb. I mean, is it a big Jake Ferguson? Great. The Pittsburgh Steelers would love that. Right? I just don't see Dallas putting up a lot of points. And Patrick, as you brought up, no D-Law, no Micah. It's already a bad run defense. What do the Steelers do? I mean, seriously, Justin Fields might have like 9 passing attempts in this game.
They hope that they can get their running game a little more consistent. I love that I saw some more design runs and Fields scrambling more last week. He just hadn't been doing it the first 3 weeks, and that can get their offense juiced. Look, the Colts threw the ball pretty well against the Steelers. I mean, they have an offensive line to do it. Is a Cowboys offensive line, can they hold up? Probably not as well as the Colts did, but I think you can find holes in the Steelers secondary. Patrick Queen has been struggling for them in terms of his coverage ability. Some miscommunications there where the players were like yelling at each other last week. And you think like, oh, well, everyone's just going to focus on CD. Like CD's gone. I mean, CD, they should be able to figure out how to help get him open, but they are almost last in the league in motion rate. There's some talk, we're back to Green Bay where everyone's complaining about Mike McCarthy not being able to scheme players open. And if you listen to the beat writers that are on there, it just feels like there's a little more player grumbling that maybe CD and Dak aren't exactly on the same page with their coach. They're on the same page with each other, but not necessarily with what's going on with the offense.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people do a lot of reading into sideline frustration. Losing is not fun, right? Losing isn't fun, and CD is of course used to scoring a lot of points. This Cowboys offense has traditionally been good, and a lot of that relies on Dak Prescott and his ability at the line of scrimmage. But it feels like the whole plane is built out of that right now. And every single first down the Dallas Cowboys get, it's like he's doing particle physics back there.
You're right.
To not just diagnose the defense, but he's weaving out of 3 and 4 people and like getting back shoulders to Jalen Tolbert. And it's just like it's hard to imagine it being consistently sustainable on the road in Pittsburgh.
I agree. I'm torn on who to pick this game. I'm not ready to do so just because I think the Steelers have their sense of flaws and their offense.
Sure.
Like Justin Fields is playing like a top 10 to 15 quarterback right now, and yet the offense is still pretty rough around the edges. So that's asking a lot out of him. I trust Dak more to make more with less. But to back up what you're saying about Dak, I love it when you have nice, nerdy statistical backup for points that we just see with our eyes. So everything seems hard for this Cowboy offense. The Cowboys are first or last, depending on how you look at it, in tight window throw rate. So just the smallest windows that Dak's thrown into, and this goes along with it, they are last in separation, overall average separation for their wide receivers. So everything's condensed.
That is interesting. I would have never thought that. I wouldn't, but that again, that goes
because you got one guy that can get open, and that guy's getting doubled, and then everyone else in the scheme, and
But even like Brandon Cooks, like the Archer. I mean, this guy's a speed burner. He's supposed to be getting behind people.
He was. So he's out for this game, as you mentioned. I think he'd been playing through something.
That must be
because they said he stayed in New York to get a procedure, and he did not look right this year. The one thing I just want to say is I want more of Darnell Washington.
Yes.
Oh my God.
280 pounds coming at you. From
Seeing him run down the sideline and his other touchdown catch, build the whole plane out of Fields and Darnell Washington, and I'm entertained. Let's go. I just want more.
This is a perfect game for him to get going.
It's all Georgia trio.
There you go.
Darnell Washington and Justin Fields making it work. But, I mean, you mentioned Dak. Dak's always going to be high on the tight window throw percentage because he takes those chances and he makes those reads and he can make those throws. But just how much of it do you want? Like, where are the layups in this offense? And maybe without Brandon Cooks, there's more Kevontae Turpin. They get action in the screen game. Put Turpin out wide, but who knows, man? It's a tough watch. And then Jerry's telling Jane Slater this week that they're out on Devontae. There's no more money in Texas. Apparently, they can't.
I mean, what are they doing, man?
A lot of cap space, by the way.
I think that there's
they have a ton of cap space.
Yeah,
No, there is. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You can look at it.
Yeah, they've got cap
Actually,
space.
they have among the most cap space in the league.
Like, why wouldn't you want to get? You could say what you want about Devontae Adams, man. That dude is a dog. He is a grinder. He practices hard. That's the type of dude you need to set an example for everybody on that roster.
And I think Devontae could move a few jerseys. It makes sense. It makes sense to me.
The real purpose,
but
the real mission.
We'll see. Speaking of Devontae Adams, the Las Vegas Raiders on the road at the Denver Broncos. The road warrior Denver Broncos went on the road to Tampa, got to win. On the road to MetLife, got to win. Now the Broncos and Bo Nix are 2.5-point favorites against Gardner Minshew and the rest of the crew, with the total sitting at 36. Greg, did Bo Nix show you enough at MetLife?
No. What do you mean? I mean, he showed me enough to believe that you can't possibly keep winning like this.
No.
It's a couple times now. Like, his bad throws are bad. I think he struggled with the rain hand size alert a little bit because those throws were coming out crazy. And then the rain kind of died off in the third quarter, or especially the fourth, and he actually did look better. So I think that was at least part of it. The Denver run game was a little better, but really they're going to have to win with defense, and a great defense. Like when I think about picking this game, I'm like, what do I really trust with either of these teams right now? It's the way that Vance Joseph is calling that defense.
Oh, it's amazing.
Zach Allen, 23 pressures. I know it's not a perfect stat, but pass rush win rate, the top two defensive tackles in the NFL are Zach Allen, which surprising, but not so much when you watch these games. He's been great. And Malcolm Roach of the Broncos. Those were the top two. So that's a good start if you can get some heat on Gardner Minshew.
Well, I mean, look, this is one. It's going to be mucked up. It's going to be a lot of run game. Vegas is going to have to run because Devontae Adams is not playing. I think he's played his last game in the silver and black. Not really a lot of threats.
Missed practice with a hamstring injury. Max Crosby also out of practice.
Yeah, I think Max will return this week. I mean, he missed last game. He's trying to get right. The dude hates missing ball games. But I mean, what else do you have offensively? I mean, you got the tight end Brock Bowers, and he's a real one. He's fantastic, right? So now we're going to great. Vance Joseph will go ahead and take care of that. We're not going to let him beat us. I just don't know if Vegas can score. I think that 36 number is perfect for the over and under. This is not going to be a high-flying ball game right here. And just the consistency. I mean, Vegas' defense, Patrick Graham's got some good stuff working as well.
Yep.
So, I just think this is one where if I have to trust the defense, the way the Broncos have played the past 2 or 3 weeks has been as impressive as any team in the NFL.
The number one passing efficiency defense in all of football. 6 in rushing defense, number 6 in pressure rate. Going up against a Raiders team that's in the 20s or 30s in all of those stats. And I'm looking over how impossible would it be to average over 4.5 yards per carry, which Javonte Williams did, in a football game where your quarterback had -7 passing yards in the first half.
Isn't that crazy?
I believe in the Broncos run game simply based on the fact that they're able to do anything with Bo Nix attempting so many of his passes short of 10 yards around the line of scrimmage.
I think so many of those completions last week were behind the line of scrimmage. That's the thing that's crazy is he had so few, and the completions that he had were behind the line of scrimmage. I was gonna say it should be better weather, but like if he's not a good bad weather quarterback, Denver is not the city for you.
I think things will improve with time, right? You have to project.
He did play at Oregon. I mean, he's played in some bad weather.
Okay.
I'm
getting him over.
He'll get there.
That was a tough watch. So I went back. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah, but sloppy conditions. I mean, that's not going to happen every week.
By the way, assuming that Devontae Adams doesn't ever play for the Raiders again, which feels very safe at this point.
Yes.
They don't have enough weapons, and he played with 6 different starting quarterbacks in the time that he was there. That is crazy. He was barely there.
That's quite Larry Fitzgerald-like, who played with like 46 in his years with Arizona.
I have seen some revisionist stuff where it's like, Devontae should have stayed in Green Bay. They had years to make him that offer.
Yes.
Like the Rodgers contract came in between that. Then they come in after the fact. It's like, oh yeah, he had the same offer on the table that the Raiders gave him. When did that offer come in? Let's be honest. He wanted out. He wanted an opportunity, and he took it. The Raiders just kind of went south,
and
they didn't want to pay their quarterback either.
Right. The latest in Devontae trade rumors reporting. ESPN had that the Jets and the Saints were atop his wish list. So man, he loves that Derek Carr.
He loves Derek, and look, the Saints. I think the Saints would love to have him.
He's seen what life is like without either of those two guys.
Yes,
and he's like, you know what? I want to go.
He is a great fit on the Saints.
Here's the thing with both.
He's a great fit
with both of those teams, though. I mean, they could both be blown up after the season. I mean, would he really want to go to either of those teams? Because if the Jets struggle, they're blowing that thing up.
Well, he might become a free agent. Who knows? He's due $35 million next year. Would he?
Yeah, non-guaranteed.
Life is short. I think if you're Devontae Adams, even if you're not getting any more money from a new contract this year, I think he's like, well, I don't want to spend the next 12 weeks with the Raiders. I want to go to a team that can be in the mix. He might not even require more money right off the bat this time around.
If I were him, I'd be pushing to go to a place like Buffalo.
Yeah, if he wanted to check it down, he would. But this is about being somewhere where the remainder of his career can have some sort of significance to somebody.
Yep.
And he does not see that. And I understand why he does not see that.
As I said yesterday, Gardner Minshew is not going to be on quarterback island, Patrick.
But hey, Gardner Minshew did get some wins last year for the Indianapolis Colts, where Greg was asking, how does he keep getting away with this? And now maybe they have Joe Flacco. Is it Anthony Richardson? Either way, they are in Duval taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are a 3-point favorite despite the fact that they have had the 2024 Jacksonville Jaguars season where there's players-only meetings discussions. There's the players aren't calling the plays and the coaches can't play, Greg. Vibes down horrendously.
Yeah, Doug Peterson asked on Wednesday, have you lost the locker room? And his answer was, no, I have not lost the locker room. I mean, what kind of I understand why you asked that, but it's a tough one to answer. Like, there's no way to answer that.
What does it mean, by the way?
He's probably, I've lost
players
them.
Don't believe in him.
Well,
I mean, you mentioned Minshew having such an impact on the Colts. It wasn't that long ago that we were talking about how ridiculous it was they were letting Minshew get all the first-team reps over Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, Trevor Lawrence isn't playing any better than Gardner Minshew this year. I hate to,
it is. He is.
I'm shocked by it, but the ball's not going where he's aiming it to go.
He looks like, he's just a non-confident player right now. And they have got to – look, they've got to get this win. Otherwise, they're winless going over to London to play the Bears. Like, they have got to get this win. The flame is red hot under Doug Peterson. The only thing is there's really nobody on his staff who can take over. maybe Mike McCoy if they were to get rid of him. So I don't think his job security is quite as in immediate danger as some people
you
might
gotta win.
think.
You got to win a game. If you go to London and lose to the Bears and the Patriots and lose this game, you
Then
get
that
0-7 or
yeah,
something.
then things change.
Yeah.
I mean, Shad Khan is not trying to lose games over in his home away from home in England, but the way the Colts, their quarterback situation, I think they're fine. This is a game where I think they're going to be able to move the ball. Jonathan Taylor's nicked up, right?
Yeah, he's out of practice Wednesday.
Yeah.
He has a high ankle sprain.
So we don't know if they're going to be able to run the ball, but teams are throwing the ball against the Jags, man. They're finding matchups all over the place.
I have a case for positivity in Jacksonville. This offense is in the pass game has mainly been funneled these past couple of years between Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk coming back from that offseason surgery, slow start. Evan Ingram only played one game this season. Now we've got both of them potentially being on the field and healthy for the first time.
Ingram changes things. Ingram changes things. I mean, that is Trevor's guy.
Because that's why, like Trevor's downfield passing rate, one of the highest in the league right now. They're taking nothing but shots.
Yep.
And I think a lot of that is because Evan Ingram is not in those particular spots where Trevor trusts him to make plays.
Gabe Davis has not worked out so far for them, just hasn't had the production. I mean, Brian Thomas looks like a great draft
He's a real
pick.
one.
When the ball's near him, he's made some really nice grabs. But yeah, they've been struggling in the red zone. Really, any stat you want to find on offense, it's not good for the Jaguars. Then again, they're going up against a Colts defense who lost Tyquan Lewis. He's going to injured reserve. Not a big name, but he is the third out of 4 starters off their defensive line that's out and on IR. And so that's pretty major. You still have Grover Stewart. You have Latu, but that's big. Flacco was taking some reps in practice, but Richardson is limited. He's day-to-day. We're not sure if Richardson's going to play. It's disappointing because for as much credit as Flacco got, man, that run game was absolutely cooking.
Oh, yeah.
Including early against the Steelers. And Richardson was a huge part of that. Their first drive and a half, he gets a touchdown first drive, gets him into field goal range before the injury, the second drive. And so I wanted to see that come together. And even if he's out there, he's banged up and Taylor's not there, that's their whole offensive identity. They could find a way to get a win with Flacco, but it's just you want to be building on what your team is actually going to be.
And that offensive line's playing well. So, I mean, that's something to think about.
Pittman and Downs might not mind Flacco being in there just because there's like more volume.
But as you mentioned, Anthony Richardson had a couple great balls to Michael Pittman Jr. Early in that game before he left. He was getting involved. Downs looks good and healthy. There's cases for positivity for both of these teams. You may feel really different for whoever comes up on the wrong side of this one.
Oh my gosh, that's a great point. But
the Colts could have a fantastic manage the season situation. If they get out of this game 3-2 after the start they've had, they will feel great about it.
The Jags lose. To your point about Evan Ingram, 114 catches last year. I mean, that's how much as a tight end he means to this team.
Like it is a real need.
Yes.
And right now things are real tough for Trevor and the Jags. Let's get back to SoFi Stadium next as the Green Bay Packers on the road, a 3-point favorite against Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams. Both of these teams with late heartbreakers last week. And Greg, we keep seeing Matthew Stafford kind of have the team on his back, but it's starting to feel like that burden is a little bit too much of a load to carry.
Yeah, it's a lot. And this game is a big one for them. It's before their bye week. They do not want to be 1-4 heading into their bye. Then again, I thought, didn't they have a game like this last year? They had a game again, I think it was backup starting against the Packers, and they lost it.
Right.
And they going into their bye, they were 3-6 at that point, and they managed to come all the way back and have a chance to, and they made the playoffs.
That's when Brett Rippon went to Green Bay and started. The Rams cut him immediately after.
That's rough. I think there's a lot to worry about with the Rams team because the defense, it's gone from good enough certainly last year to not good enough this year, and they're getting a lot of pressure. And this is what happens when you lose, the greatest defensive player of all time, and your coach who is a good one, and Raheem Morris. They're weirdly first in pressure rate, which makes me question the pressure rate stat. And yet, because they're still one of the worst defenses, they aren't finishing plays. They only have 7 sacks, and it's not affecting other quarterbacks enough. It's a lot of Jared Verse and Fisk kind of flying by the quarterback, and so they just need to figure that out.
Yeah, it's more like a proximity alert thing. and we need a better way to contextualize what.
I love the proximity alert. That is
Yeah.
beautiful, Matt. Coin that.
Yeah, it's
that
like
is well done.
the horseshoes and hand grenades stat, where it's like
Right. It's a lot of guys flying by, and then the quarterback steps up in the pocket and makes a play on them, I think is what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, how are the Packers only a 3-point favorite? Because there will be more Packer fans in that stadium. And again, this is not saying anything about Rams fans. Packers fans show up everywhere. So it's going to be a home game on the West Coast for Green Bay. I just, we've talked about it. Stafford plays his heart out. He just doesn't have guys who can move the ball. Jordan Love going to get back. He's going to feel a little bit better offensively. I think this is one where Green Bay is going to ring up a ton of points and put it on the Rams.
I tend to agree. Their pass rush hasn't been great. I know there's some Packers fans out there that really want a little more out of Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary. They're big ticket players who've been pretty quiet.
Scheme change.
And I just want a normal game out of Jordan Love. He's had a weird season. The opener was extremely weird on that field. He was a little all over the place last week. He's coming back from an injury, didn't look 100%. That was a really up and down game. And so he just needs to kind of settle in. And he can feel better. If he doesn't pick up a third down, that he's got Daniel Whelan on his side.
There you go.
This Irish punter is a problem. I mean, this guy had a 74-yard punt last week. He created a touchdown by having a punt so good that it went over Minnesota's shoulders there and created a short field. This guy, the Irish punter, he's the man.
This guy, the Irish punter.
That's my guy.
By the way, I'm looking up last 10. Packers are 9-1.
Wow.
Over the Rams as well. I knew there was something where McVay had problems against LaFleur.
The guy that I'm not at all concerned about, who I think has a huge day, is Jaden Reed going up against this Rams.
Man, how good is he?
Yeah, he's explosive. And people, because for years, right, everybody was looking for Deebo Samuel, and he's not Deebo Samuel with the ball in his hands like prime Deebo, but just purely as a receiver, I think he's better than peak Deebo was. Like not.
And he's faster. I mean, he's not going to be as physical. No one's as physical, and he's a smaller player. But I agree with you. He's a weapon in a similar way to Deebo. That's a good call.
Yeah, this is going to be Josh Jacobs. I mean, I think this is one where just Green Bay's offense. This is one when you look at the Rams defense. Is there something where like you say can they get it together, or is it one where the dam just breaks on this defense? Because you talked about it, Verse and Fisk are fantastic. And Byron Young gives him a little something. But where else are they making enough plays, especially when you're facing an offense like this with a quarterback who wants to get his mojo going?
And a great play caller, too.
Great play caller.
The secondary is, I don't know what they were expecting exactly. It was kind of patched together, but I think they expected better play maybe out of the safety position. They've been okay, but
Quentin Lake's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
It was very jarring to see DeAndre Swift in a Bears offensive line that could not run the ball.
Oh my gosh, just gash him.
It's tough. It's tough right now in Los Angeles.
Don't give up, Ellis. My daughter, of course, a big Rams fan. This is a big game for them. I really mean it. Before the bye, getting to 2-3 would be huge for them. Packers would be in a world of hurt too if they lost this game after losing to the Vikings. We'll be back in just a second on NFL Daily. Back on NFL Daily, couple surprising just notes for you on our next game, Patrick. Browns Commanders. First of all, Greg Olsen doing a Browns Commanders game in Week 5 shows you that Commanders are becoming one of America's teams right now.
Gotta watch him.
Second of all, a man named Jason Benetti is the play-by-play guy. Not familiar with his work, and they slide him right into a big chair with Greg Olsen while Joe Davis is doing baseball.
That shows me that I believe in Jason. Just that situation, I believe Jason Benetti is going to call it on.
I cover these announcers, Steve, like some people cover teams. So I truly might watch this game specifically to do a little Benetti scouting. Because that's a big spot for them to put him in. That's a lot of confidence they have.
That'll be great. Yeah.
I'll tell you what you're not going to tune into this game for. to see the high-flying Deshaun Watson-led Cleveland Browns offense that lost a nasty game on the road to Gardner Minshew last week at these Commanders, who are a 3-point favorite, which maybe should be a bit more, and the hottest quarterback right now that's not named Jared Goff in the entire NFL, Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, that's really interesting that they're only favored by 3. It really shows that they're still waiting information that came before this year in what they expect this Browns team to be, because that's not reflective of the team that they are, which is one of the worst teams in the NFL. I mentioned DVOA, like total efficiency. They have the Browns actually dead last. They had Miami 31. I think the Patriots were 30. And that's because their offense is dead last. Now, Watson played better last week, but the offense was still really struggling. And this should be a get-right type of matchup. But if you're a Commanders optimist, maybe you watched last week's game and you thought, okay, is Dan Quinn's defensive philosophy starting to take hold here?
Yeah.
Frankie Louvu flying all over the place. Bobby Wagner, the cornerback's playing better. It was just one game, but after 3 really tough performances, they looked like a decent defense, and all they need to be is decent, and I think this team is a contender. They just need to be the 21st best defense in the league, and this team has a chance to make the playoffs.
It was funny. I was actually talking to Dan Quinn about something Tuesday night, the head coach for the Commanders, and he was like, Cleveland gives you a million different things to occupy preparing on both sides of the ball. Of course, defensively with Jim Schwartz, they do have some players that match up well with what Washington likes to do offensively. You know, you have JOK, one of my favorite players, who can spy, right? They use him a lot as an inside linebacker who can spy Jaden Daniels, right? So they've got some pieces that are nice little counter chips. And I think people, when you look at this 3-point spread, are still waiting for Washington to see if they can handle being a successful football team. To go back to what Aaron Rodgers says, how do we handle success?
Handled it well last week. That was my whole theory of like, they're on the road a second time, short week, against a decent enough team, and they put a 40 burger on them.
I mean,
it could have been worse.
Yeah, Jaden was amazing. You know, in Cleveland, there's their offensive line issues. Deshaun, he just does not look right in any way, shape, or form. Running the offense. I mean, not even like throwing the ball or getting things going in that realm. It just does not look functional. But again, Washington, like you said, it's a prove-it game for the defense with Dan Quinn and Joe Witt on that side of the ball. Their corners are still something that's going to be an all season long working. Just their personnel is not that great, but they do love some of the things they saw with their safeties. Up the spine, as the new term goes, of the defense. We know how good those tackles are. You mentioned the inside linebackers. They like the way they functioned and how other guys built off of that.
Little Jerry Newton, the second-round pick I was into and during draft season, getting some more pop.
Yeah, so I think they feel better about their defense, but I think offensively, they know it's not going to be a layup just because Jim Schwartz has got some pieces that counter some of their strengths.
Well, the weakness of the team is we know it's zeroed in at the quarterback right now, who if not for Bo Nix would have the worst EPA on dropbacks. Right now he's second worst, negative 51.5. Right there. And so like the Browns, it's all on Jim Schwartz. They blitz of 48, almost 48% of dropbacks on second down.
Wow.
Meanwhile,
This might not be the dude to be blitzing against, though.
Jaden Daniels is getting rid of the ball quickly.
Yeah.
Teams are playing with their safeties close to the line of scrimmage, and it's not working. And when the Bengals are sending zeros, they're hitting the shots to get you back out of that. And some folks are charting regression, and I would understand that against a traditionally good Browns defense. I'm just going to need to see him struggle before I say that.
Yeah, and like the defense that you think about with the Browns, they would have gone into Vegas last week and absolutely dominate. I'm not saying they played poorly, but they just look like two even teams. They gave up 152 yards rushing to the Raiders.
Yeah.
So
who don't run the ball well.
And a lot of that was those like wide receiver end around type stuff. I mean, the Commanders can take advantage with their speed and Jaden Daniels' legs, with the over aggressiveness sometimes. I mean, Grant Delpit said before last week's game it was a must win, and then they lost. So whenever you lose the must win, I just chalk up the next week as a loss too. I mean, it's dark there. They're spending more cash. If you're Jim Haslam, you're spending. He just gave his coach and his GM, I think, an extension. As he
should.
He's spending more cash on players than any team in the league. They are the second oldest team in the league.
Yeah, that's because they keep converting all those future years into cash. Just real quick, we can't get out of this without talking about Brian Robinson and what they're doing with the running game in Washington. That's why those safeties are playing up. And I mentioned it yesterday on the pod. Anthony Lynn, being their run game coordinator, helps out a lot. It keeps Cliff Kingsbury from going against his tendencies of throwing the ball too much. And when you've got a stud like him, Eckler could be back as well this game. So this is why
their line dominated. As good as Jaden Daniels is, I couldn't believe how much pass pro he had last week. And it was against Arizona, who's not known for rushing the passer, but he's just sitting back there chilling. So that's a great job by their front.
Yeah, and it makes it extra tough because you got to be under control when you're rushing Jaden Daniels. And then when you're getting mauled up front on top of that, that was the recipe. Again, 50 would have been easy, an easy 50. Had Dan decided that he wanted to. I'm sure Cliff might have considered wanting it. Either way. But as Greg pointed out, they're still paying him.
Yeah, he's still cashing those checks from the Cardinals. He won twice last Sunday. That's awesome.
All right, to our next game, it's the Carolina Panthers, who traded famously with the Chicago Bears, and here we are, the payoff of the trade. DJ Moore on one side, Caleb Williams on the side with him, and Bryce Young is watching as Andy Dalton starts for the third straight game.
Former Bear starting quarterback, Andy Dalton.
Yeah, so another Dalton revenge game, two weeks in a row. Chicago is a 4-point favorite here, Steve. We got Kenny Albert and Jonathan Vilma on the call. The Bears can run the ball now, apparently.
Well, they ran it against the Rams, who we were just talking about.
The Panthers' defense has been no great shakes.
Which is just, where do the Panthers do well? I mean, that's one thing you have to kind of ask yourself. This is one, I think, for Chicago. Let's see if they can get it going, right? This is an important stretch for them, but let's see if they can get it going in a game they should win, right? Their defense, they've got the defense to put the heat all over Andy Dalton, force a couple takeaways, and then offensively, try to get the run to balance the pass game. Don't put a ton of it, on the rookie quarterback. But I just think four is probably about the right number for this, because I don't see Chicago necessarily rolling over everybody because they're still working through things. But if we're seeing Caleb Williams in this run game getting it going against Carolina, to me, I think 4 is a really nice number with the Bears on top.
It just hasn't clicked for Caleb Williams yet. There were a couple plays last week where he was so stuck in the pocket, refusing to move his feet, that you almost could hear the coaching point of don't bail out too quickly. But he literally just wasn't moving. Yeah. And that, I don't think that's a natural thing for Caleb Williams. His feet, were just planted. And he had people around him, and he hit a bunch of his short passes, and he didn't make mistakes in the running game. So that was effective for him a week ago. This is an opportunity against a bad defense. You have the Jags. Me and you will be at that game, yes. Steve. If you're in the UK, you can see me. I'll be on Sky Sports on the sideline. So we're both sideline reporters.
Both sidelines. I'll bump into you, Greg.
Maybe I'll say hi.
Sweet.
And what a gift they've been given.
It's Haya over there.
Yeah. A gift they've been given by the schedule gods. I mean, to get a banged up Rams team, then the Panthers, then the Jags, then the bye, then a Cardinals team that has some issues. You can make some hay here, and we can get going. I just want to see Caleb be a little more comfortable.
Yeah, the discomfort, I think, is going to be on the Carolina Panthers side. If matching up these teams, the Bears' defense is the clear plus.
Yes.
In this one, as great as the Andy Dalton revolution has been, and it's nice to see them be a functional football team. Watching Matt Stafford fail to make plays late, and again, the accumulation of circumstances that he's facing probably played a role in that. But this Bears defense is just so good, and it's tough to imagine. Yeah, 4 points feels about right. I'm with the odds makers here.
I saw a headline from Panthers camp today that was, their coach Dave Canales saying Deontay Johnson is not available in a trade, which I was like, why would that? Is that a question? Why was that? I didn't think that was. Why would he be? He's like, I don't
think the Panthers are sellers right now.
No, I get it. I think he's. Is he on the last year of his contract? I believe he is. So I guess naturally, maybe in 3 or 4 weeks, if their record was really bad, teams could come calling.
Sure.
But they want to produce. This is the first year under Dave Canales. I think they would like to have Deontay Johnson long term. They should not be in the business of giving away weapons, and they should feel better their offensive line playing better, and Leggett had a nice Xavier Leggett had a nice game. So those are the types of things if you're a Panthers fan, you really are looking towards. Some of these free agents, can they work out on the offensive line? Can Leggett work out? Deontay Johnson work out? And then, okay, these are guys we can build with.
And they've got to form some type of nucleus because right now they don't really have a ton of building blocks.
Perhaps, is the Pittsburgh Steelers active and trying to find wide receivers for a long time? Maybe the breakup shouldn't have never happened.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's fair. I think they're happy with Dante Jackson. That's a rare case where it might be a win-win, where both teams are relatively happy, but I'd rather have Deontay Johnson, to your point.
Let's go to a little Monday night football.
Yeah.
Are you ready for some football? The New Orleans Saints at the Kansas City Chiefs, who have been struggling on offense, who have lost their top wide receiver, a 5.5-point favorite. Of course, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on the call, Greg. 5.5.
That's a big number, man.
That feels like a lot against the good
big
Saints
number.
team.
Yeah, it's almost like they're just begging it. Forget the 5.5. I mean, I am gonna be very tempted to make the same mistake I've made so many times in the Patrick Mahomes era. Dare to doubt this man at home, because it feels like the Saints are better than their 2-2 record, and the Chiefs aren't as good as their 4-0 record. And when those two types of teams match up, I tend to pick it evening out. This Chiefs offense really testing the ideas that Andy Reid's going to have, because he's going back to Sky Moore on third downs.
Oh.
Like, that's not working out. You got Kareem Hunt back in the building. He ran well, but that wasn't the plan. You know what I mean?
It will be moving forward.
Right. They wanted to be more explosive this year, and I think they had 4 explosive players. Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, and Isaiah Pacheco are now gone. Those were 3 of the 4. The 4th, the rookie Worthy, is an exciting young player. Can you build more of the offense around him? I think that's going to have to be the challenge as they move forward. I don't know if he's ready for it right yet.
I do.
Okay.
We've seen it.
Then why aren't they using him more? Maybe just, I don't know. Andy Reid does slow play rookies quite a bit.
And we talked about, first 4 games are their preseason. Let's figure out what's working. And they've had to adjust some things, right, because of the injury. So everything I've seen out of Xavier Worthy, again, if they decide to lean on him now, I think he could have a Zay Flowers type of impact. Before, they're not putting the pressure on him. Now they're putting the pressure on him. I think he's the type of player who can go big.
Okay.
It's just a thing against the Saints. Saints got the DBs. Like, Ty Matthews going to be sitting over the top of him all game, right? There's not going to be, the type of space that he's been getting, and that's something they're going to have to stop. So can Andy Reid figure out some things underneath against a very solid Saints defensive front? So it'll be intriguing. My thing, though, is, to me, this is more of what are we going to find out about the Saints? Are they the team that was hanging 40 on people the first 2, or that is decent offensively because they're going up against one of the top defenses in the NFL in terms of making you earn everything that you have to get? And are the Saints that type of offense? We saw they look like they could play that type of game against the Falcons last week. They just came up short at the end of the game. So I don't know. I think this is more of a tell on what the Saints are going to be, because I think they're a pretty good football team, but against this defense on the road, we'll see.
They are Saints 0-2 in close games. They got 2 blowouts.
Yep.
That 0-2 featured some of the most catastrophic mistakes that you could ever possibly imagine. They could very easily be 4-0, and the Kansas City Chiefs have not been in a game that wasn't a close game.
They played close games.
It came down to the wire because, particularly of the injuries and the offensive struggles. Patrick Mahomes, the lowest mark of his career, 5.1 air yards per attempt. So if we want Xavier Worthy getting all these downfield shots, they're just not available in this offense. And I kind of feel like between Nagy and Andy Reid and probably the quarterback as well, those low percentage opportunities, they feel like they're going to be off the field very, very fast if they don't hit those. And so they don't go to those shot plays as much. This feels like an opportunity where it's not wish casting to say the Saints go in here and get a win.
No.
This feels very realistic.
I think the offensive line is the biggest, issue. It held up well enough last week without Eric McCoy, without Cesar Ruiz, 2 interior players. McCoy really key, but that was against the Falcons. That's a team you can kind of survive with the shaky offensive line, Trevor Penning and everything. Now you got to go up against the Chiefs in their front with Chris Jones playing like a Hall of Famer
and George Karlaftis
week after week.
Continues
and
to
so
blow up.
that worries me a little bit. It'll be tougher, but I do think there's an opportunity. I think the one counter I would have to what you said, Patrick, is those catastrophic mistakes. That's a hallmark of this Dennis Allen team. And Alvin Kamara in the locker room afterwards was very pointed about it, like that they make dumb mistakes. They don't win games that great teams do. And he was very frustrated because of the blown opportunities that this keeps happening to us over and over.
Well, look, you keep on doing the same thing over and over again. That's a habit, so that's an issue. And you don't beat Kansas City by beating yourself.
And Kamara saying that playing with broken ribs.
Yeah.
in a game, it's just, I can't imagine the level of frustration to go out there and have a performance like he did with broken ribs. And to see them lose to a team that didn't score an offensive touchdown.
That's the thing. I mean, that game in particular, I think the Eagles game was more, some mental errors. That was just, that was a mental error by Rashid Shaheed, but you wouldn't think that would ever happen again. The pick six was a little crazy. I do like the Saints in this one, I got to admit.
Yeah, I think
we're
on board there.
I don't like the points, but I like the Chiefs.
I keep blowing it, just expecting too much of this Saints team.
Let's go to a game in Seattle, coming off that heartbreaker scorefest against the Lions. A 6-point favorite against Malik Neighbors and the New York Giants. For some reason, people keep putting dimes on promos about the Giants, and I just have to audibly change it to say Malik Neighbors and the Giants. Seattle favored by 6, 43.5. Andrew Catalan, Tiki Barber, Jason McCourty on the call, Steve, where Geno played great. He played a spectacular football game, but the defense literally could not get Jared Goff to throw a single incompletion.
Yeah, look, they had, four starters in the front seven who were all down. I don't know if they're getting any of those guys back. First off, let's go back to your announcers. Jason McCourty.
Doing a good job.
Is spectacular. He's really, really just a hell of an analyst. Props to him. But to get back to this game, the six number looks big to me for Seattle because, defensively they had their issues. You saw how Detroit really put some good secondary players, Reek Woolen and especially Devin Witherspoon, in tremendous conflict. I don't know if the Giants have the players necessarily to do that, or the quarterback to do that, or the play caller to do that. But until Seattle gets fully healthy up front, there's going to be some opportunities there. But Seattle's going to score. The Seahawks are going to put points up. What we saw out of Kenneth Walker,
he's special.
And they're going to continue to rely on him. He looks super healthy. I think he's going to be able to run the ball against the Giants. That's going to get those pass rushers who are very good for the Giants on their heels. And then Geno just dialing it up. What he's got going with DK Metcalf is really special. Look at Kenneth Walker right here.
That's one of the more athletic plays I've ever seen.
When he got flipped over, lands on his feet, and just keeps going. His ability to change direction, it probably drives their coaches crazy every now and then because he'll have like a -7 thrown in there. He'll lose some plays, but my God, it's fun to watch when it works. And it's been working more and more. I think he's gotten better and better as a pro. And I think their offensive line has improved the last 2 weeks.
I agree.
Because they were just a tire fire the first 2 weeks where you're thinking it's a big, big problem. The last 2 weeks, it's been more like, okay, if you're closer to average, I didn't think Geno was pressured too much against the Lions. When he was, it tended to be the longer developing plays where he held the ball and he made it happen. And I think that's a good sign for them against a pretty good front. Burns is getting a lot of pressures. He's not finishing plays. Kayvon's coming off a big game. You got Dexter Lawrence. Mm-hmm. I think this is damning with faint praise, but the Giants are a good 1-3. I think they're actually,
I would agree with that.
I think they've been better. I looked at the rest of the 1-3s here.
Okay.
I think there's 8 or 9 teams. I would say that they're like the second best 1-3 team. That's the least.
Who's
there
first?
it is. Hang the banner in MetLife.
Yeah.
Guys.
Who you giving the first?
I'm giving
Daddy?
Burrow the first.
Okay.
Burrow and the Bengals the first. And I would think just an average weekly play, I think they've probably been a little better than the Rams and maybe the Cardinals. I just think they're
agree with
okay.
that.
They're all in the same area, but they're just not great at anything, but they're not terrible at anything either. They're just a little below average at everything.
If you're looking for a terrible Giants stat, you go back to 2022. On downfield passing attempts, Daniel Jones has thrown more interceptions than he has completion.
Okay, I take it back.
Excuse me, touchdowns.
I take what I just said back.
On downfield passing attempts. There were several times on that game on Thursday night where Giants receivers were open.
Yeah.
They were open, and the ball placement was so bad that the Cowboys defense was able to get back and make plays, or the ball just wound up being uncatchable. And after seeing the Seahawks defense go up against, again, the most accurate quarterback on a night in NFL history, it's going to be a feel-good reprieve to see number 8 on the other side.
It's interesting, the Daniel Jones deep ball conversation. Some folks are just saying because of the injuries, he just can't uncork anymore. I mean, I don't know if there's any factual truth behind it, but you just see over and over when he's trying to throw that deep ball, it is not getting there.
Yeah, I take back what I said that they're like just below average at everything because they're terrible at throwing the deep ball. That's a big factor. And
Especially
when
you got Malik Neighbors.
Right, and when you have Darius Slayton, that's what he wants to major in, and he's a good NFL player. He's not like a great one, but he's a rotation. He's a good player, but you're not taking advantage of him. You're not taking advantage of Jalen Hyatt, who can barely get on the field for this team. And you're going up against some cornerbacks who can play sticky man coverage, and that limits what you want to do. So, yeah, I don't think they'll win this game, but I don't know if I trust the Seahawks to be blowing teams out either. I can see this coming down to the end between the Giants and the Seahawks. Why not?
Yeah, why not? Well,
And Jason McCourty will really give us a good insight on it as well.
I think he's doing a great job.
I think he's excellent.
I'm glad you shouted him out.
Yeah, indeed. And shout out to Eugene Cyril Smith and everything that he's doing in Seattle. Let's get to our final game. It is another game, speaking of the NFC West, a division matchup between the Arizona Cardinals at the San Francisco 49ers. We are trying to figure out these teams. Right now, it's 49ers favored by 7, but it's just up and down, Greg. We see the Arizona Cardinals come out. They hang 1 billion points on the Rams, and then the offense has been slow ever since. And looking at San Francisco, like, when are they going to be the 49ers that we know?
I think they were pretty close to it. Now, the Patriots are the Patriots, but they controlled that game. They got up 20-0. They had their good players come back in terms of Debo and George Kittle. I like the direction that they're going. I think they're getting fantastic play out of Brock Purdy. I talked about him on Quarterback Island.
Yeah.
I think he's playing better than when he was an MVP candidate a year ago. I think he's legitimately one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league so far this year. And so if your quarterback's playing that well and you have all this talent around him, the defense, that's the question. And this is a good week to continue to try to get healthy because Kyler's just a little out of rhythm. Like, his eyes kept coming down and seeing the pass rush last week. He's maybe trying to do a little too much out of structure. He did it against the Rams so much where he's just out there and it's the Kyler show that he might have fallen too much in love with it the last couple weeks. And you're not seeing a lot of making throws at the back of his drop and in rhythm type of throws to his receivers.
Yeah, the last 4 games with these teams, I mean, the 49ers have just rolled Arizona. And, there's a potential for this to happen right here. Jordan Mason's going to get some rushing yards here. I mean, he's just got it working. I don't care what defense they're playing. Their offensive line, I mean, look at this right here. That's what you call playing on a thread, that zone stretch scheme. And he just breaks the first tackle every time. You're not going to get a clean look at him, but he's just a typical now Niners running back where he's going to get positive yards. We're watching video of him in the red zone, cut back. He's getting into the end zone. That's going to happen against the Cardinals. They're not great at any level in tackling. It seems like Budda Baker's got 17 tackles every game coming up from the safety spot. That's going to open up things in the run game. This is one where Brock Purdy, if he throws the ball 24 times, I'll be surprised because I just think that he's going to be able to run the ball. Debo's going to get some runs. I think this is going to be a heavy rushing attack by the 49ers at home.
I'm glad you brought up Brock Purdy because it's kind of getting lost. Brock Purdy is leading the NFL in passing right now. 1,130 passing yards this season.
He got more than Geno?
Under 20% of those have been after the catch.
Right.
So this collective Brock Purdy, fraud watch criticism where it's like, oh, this is all yards after the catch, and oh, Sam Darnold should come in and play instead of him, and Brock is playing very good football with the team not being the guys who are consistently in and out. We've seen Trent leave games, come back. Ayuk has had a slow start. They had to rely on Juwan Jennings. Brock is playing really, really good football right now, and the Arizona Cardinals.
It's a young player. Like, it makes sense that he's improving a lot this early in his career. He's played so much and in such big spots, and you think of him because he was Mr. Irrelevant as like, and I maybe fell victim to this too, of like that he's just this guy that isn't going to be as talented, but we expect talented young quarterbacks to keep improving in their first 5 years before they are fully formed. And we're seeing more of the fully formed Brock Purdy. He can continue to get better, but he's not afraid to throw deep.
No.
Like, his percentage of deep throws is sky high. Yards per attempt, he's leading the league by half a yard. I can't question his decision making. Like, he's running the ball pretty well too. This Cardinals defense, after a decent 3 weeks where you're like, oh, they're playing a little over their skis, came back to earth, and that was kind of the Cardinals defense you expected to see a week ago against the Commanders.
Yeah, and to get back to Brock, I mean, you've heard me say it over and over. He's a killer, right? He is a dude who, when it comes down to it, you test him, he's going to rip it to you. Like, he's not someone who's going to take a shot, right? He's not Jay Cutler type. I'm going to show you my big arm and try and rip it in there. But he finds the receiver. He is not afraid to throw the ball to where it's supposed to go to throw Juwan Jennings or whomever who might be covered. I'm going to put it to where you're going to catch it and you're going to make the play. I just think he's a winning quarterback, but not in the, oh, he's a winner type of
Right.
He's a guy who's going to be able to lead you to victory. And I think he's showing that, like we talked about, just everything that they've been without, they've got him.
The playoff run, I think, is going to get a little lost because they lost that game. But the fact that he was in a position where he had to make a drive to avoid a really tough loss in the division round, and they get it done.
Against Green Bay.
Now, he was a big part of the reason they were trailing by so much at halftime of the NFC Championship, but to respond like he did. And I will always remember his drives at the end of the Super Bowl in the way that I remember Tom Brady's 2007 drive to take the lead over the Giants as one of the best moments of his career. It really was. And then they lost the game anyways. That's how it happens. Brock Purdy had some incredible moments in the biggest of spots, and this is not that. But they do need a win. Suddenly, you lose at home and against the Cardinals, and you're 2-3, and everyone's panicking. Trey McBride is expected to be back for this game. That is good news for the fantasy tight end apocalypse of 2024.
It's nasty out there. There's tumbleweeds and people are fighting for cat food. The tight end world is tough.
I got people picking up Elijah Higgins and starting him in my league. It's like, who? What?
Getting psyched up by Isaiah Likely after week one.
And good call, Steve. Yeah, Geno does have Brock by 52 yards.
Okay.
So Geno's still number one, but hey.
to Greg.
Shout out to
What a world. What a world that everyone just kind of accepts, like, oh yeah, Geno, he's a top 10 quarterback. He's the man. It's just accepted. It's not even controversial.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Let's go.
It's just facts. That's what we deal. That's what we deal in.
What we also deal in here, factual analysis, information, a little bit of fun in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio. Always love doing this preview show with Steve Wyche and Patrick Claybon. Thanks for watching NFL Daily, presented by DoorDash. Yes, I'll be back Thursday night. Fun game. Love the NFC South. Bucks, Falcons. Gonna be wrapping it up with Gerald McCoy. Really excited. Join me live on YouTube about 10 minutes after the game. I'll be with Gerald, and on the podcast version of the show, also have Ron Rivera for a little discussion. So we got superstars. Football's back.